Welcome to Titanium Studio recording for the CO275 mobile development class at Grand Rapids Community College. This recording is going to introduce my first app. Basically, we're going from having the studio installed to our first app, and we'll try to start understanding how to write code for Titanium by Appcelerator. So, first we have to make sure that we have a running studio. You should be able to log in to the studio. You will see your name in the corner. You have to create an account to download the studio, and then you sign in after installing. There's a previous video that we have to show you how to install the studio, including the Android SDK. So today we're going to get started by saying File, New, and then Titanium Mobile Project. This environment that we're looking at is called Eclipse, and we can develop projects for many different programming languages. But Titanium Studio basically allows us to add to Eclipse these key projects like the Titanium Mobile Project. So we'll go ahead and select this type of a project. Well, now we're going to choose a name for the project, and I'll type in my first app as the name for the project. Well, let me go ahead and delete a file that I've previously created, and this is going to allow me to continue with this particular name. Okay, that should do it. Let's cancel that. Let's try it again. File, New, File, New, Titanium Mobile Project, and my first app. Okay, so we're going to use a default location. If you are on a Windows system, you may see something like C, some user documents. On my Mac system, this is under Users, my username and documents, Titanium Studio. So that's where physically the files will exist. Okay, so the project name is straightforward. We'll just choose that name. App ID, we also get to choose, but App ID is a backwards URL that is important later on when we are managing this application at the iOS App Store or on the Android market. So for our class, we're going to use edu.grcc.co275 and then followed by the name of our app. Okay, so that is the backwards URL. We call it App ID. And then for the company URL, let's go ahead and use the grc.edu mobile apps URL. Alright, now we have an SDK version, which is an internal engine that Titanium Studio uses for creating our mobile applications. And to make sure that my compilation time is straightforward, I'll go ahead and uncheck the iPad and mobile web. I'll stick with the iPhone and Android for now. Alright, well, with this setup in place, I will go ahead and say next, and we can choose certainly default templates. If you make no choice, I believe that the single window application is going to be chosen for you. So we'll just go ahead and say finish. So now we have out of the box our own project. Under Project Explorer, I can open the project and I can see the files that are part of the project. The project itself contains a number of files that are created for us automatically. And you can explore these projects on the C drive by going to Computer. The important file is called tiapp.xml. tiapp.xml. This file is an XML file, but we have a nice little wizard that helps us to, or user interface that helps us to see the fields in the XML file. And at this point, we're not going to manipulate it, but later on, we'll do some more work with this particular file. You can see that some of the entries come from the fields that the wizard asked us to enter. Okay, the other files, when you double click on them, you can actually preview them. You can see a license file here. And any of these files we can edit, they're part of the project. The resources directory is the directory that actually contains the code for our application. So we'll work intensively with the resource directory. Okay, well, with this in mind, I'll go ahead and execute my code. I'll do that by clicking on the little arrow next to the green button, which is the Run button. And I will select Titanium iPhone simulator for this particular test. I can run it in the Android simulator as well, but in just a moment this should execute the simulator with our application. Okay, so we can see some progress here in the console. It's going to perform a full rebuild, and it's going to soon start the simulator. Okay, so by default, the wizard builds this little app for us. Now the code for this app is located under app.js. Okay, app.js. So when I double click on this file, I can see code that the wizard built for us. Now what I want to do is I want to delete this code and just start us from zero, so we can see from the beginning what this is all about. So I will clear the code, and I will go ahead and play again or execute again this application. Now this time, notice that the application shows this splash screen and then stops because there's no code to execute. So there's no code in the application. So this is our square one. Where is this particular picture coming from? Well, this picture is coming from one of these directories. If you're on the Android platform, it's coming from the Android directory. If you're on the iPhone platform, then your picture is coming from here. Basically, the default PNG, okay, has a picture, and this picture is loaded as the splash screen by default in the Titanium application. So if you would like your application to show something different on Splash, just modify this picture and it'll be so. Just make sure that you keep the dimensions of this PNG because this is important. Notice that some of the other sizes they are applicable later to the iPad platform, or if the application is actually started in a landscape orientation. Okay, so this is where the splash screen is coming from. But let's go to our app.js. The first object, or the first element that we want to use in our mobile development exploration is the window object. So in Titanium, to create a window, so once we have the splash screen loaded, we would like the first window to load. We have to say something like var win. Now var simply means there is going to be a variable created, and in JavaScript that's how we create variables. So we say var, and then I gave a name of a win here. I could say first window. Okay, any of these names would have been fine because I'm actually selecting a name here. So I'll just call it win. So my first window is going to be created by calling the TI, or the Titanium root object. And then I'll go ahead and call for let's see, UI, which stands for user interface. So if you would like to have something visible in your application, you would call up the user interface. And from here, I have to use a create method, and specifically we will use create window method. Okay, so this line right here is creating a new window. Notice parentheses. Parentheses simply mean that something is going to be activated, something is going to be created. This is a method that's going to execute something. If parentheses are missing, we are likely working with a property. So a property will allow me to put an equal sign and then set some kind of a value to it. But parentheses means there's an action taking place. It's a method. Okay, so now we have a window. The window will not be visible because window has to be opened. So the most important thing that we are going to do right now is we're going to open our window. So we have two lines of code. We create, instantiate a window, and then we go ahead and open that window. Let's see what this is going to look like in our app. So we're executing it. It's launching the simulator. There it is. So the red thing went away, the splash screen went away, and we are looking at a black screen, which is our application. Now, if you don't like black, let's go ahead and change that. We can say window dot certain property, like maybe the background color property. Well, make sure to make this white. We had a black window. Now we'll go ahead and make it white. Recompiling, and in a moment the simulator will start. Here we go, red, and here it is, white canvas. You can build whatever application you want on the canvas. Okay, so we have a white window that is a very beginning of our application. So going back to the code, please notice that this is an example of, on line 6, it's an example of setting a property. There's an equal sign and some kind of a value, whereas on line 4 we're using a method to create an object, this window object. Again, we could have named it something completely different, anything we wanted. Now at this point our empty window is just a little bit too empty, so let's put something in the middle of it. What I like to put in the middle of it is this little picture that comes by default into or with our demo application. This particular picture is just an icon. So what I will do is I'll put this icon in the middle of our window. How am I going to do that? Well, first we're going to create, in addition to a window, an image view. An image view basically is a container that allows us to put a picture inside of it. So we have to start with a var keyword that says something new will be built. Var, and I'll just call it IMG, but I could have chosen any other name I wanted to. TI for titanium, UI for user interface, create image view. There it is. We just created image view. Now this image view has a property called image. And this image property is going to take a name or a path or a URL to our image. So we'll say ks nav ui.png. Now if we're going to use just a name of an image, it has to be inside of the resources directory. I currently have 2 images I could put in this space. Okay, so now we have 2 objects that are built, and image is going to be plugged in into the image view object. But what is missing right now is a link between the window and the image. And to create that link, I have to say window, go ahead and add an object called image. Alright, so this is how we put together multiple objects together. You see, we say add. So, window is the parent object. We're now adding a child object called image. Well, let's see how this is going to work. We'll execute this code. And in just a moment, the simulator comes up. Look, we have the empty white window. And in the middle, which is the default for titanium to go ahead and center it for us, which is very nice, in the middle we have a new image. Alright, here's our first app. Now, let me take this opportunity explain some of the syntax of Titanium that you see in the default application that the wizard creates. Notice that I executed the method and I put nothing in parentheses. Instead, I typed in the name of the object, followed then by the property. Okay, so that's how we can write out a change in the property. Instead, though, of putting this on its own line, what you will see in the sample applications and in most of the Titanium code is that this property can be put inside of the parentheses in this way. Okay, where we say, hey, go ahead and create this background color and make sure to make it white. Now all of this has to be put inside of curly braces. So this is what happens in the code. Alright, so this syntax is the same as this curly braced syntax where we can put multiple properties, comma delimited, and basically create an object within the create window method. Okay, so I can go ahead and comment out this particular code. So / is going to be a comment expression. At this point, I'll just go ahead and delete it so that we have fewer lines here. Next, I can take the image view and I can do this, and go ahead and clean up the code. Notice that inside of our property, we are not going to use a semicolon like we would at the end of any logical line of code, but we're going to use a colon. So we say image and then whatever the property is for it, instead of using an equal sign like we did before. So just be aware that that's where the syntax is coming from. It's basically like saying image dot, or right here, window dot background color equals white, or image dot image equals, and then the name of the image. Okay, so at this point, let's see if this is going to execute the same way. We're going to build the project, and there it is, exactly the same way. So it's just different syntax, and really syntax preferred because it's shorter in the application. Okay, so in this particular video, we saw how to create a window object, and we'll take it further next time when we add additional objects to build our application. Some of the objects that we can build are all located in the Titanium space under the UI container, and under create you can see we can build buttons, dialog boxes, we can build labels, and many different elements which are unique to mobile phones. And inside of Titanium, notice that we have these icons which show us which particular element is available for Android and which element is available for iPhone and iPad. And as you can see, some elements are only available for the iPad, and some elements at times are available only on the Android platform. Okay, well, thank you very much for your time.